Welcome to the first video of the year. These videos are intended to help you study, help you fill in any gaps that you may have had either in your packet or just maybe you missed something in class, or maybe you just want to hear it again. So we're going to go through everything that you need to know for each learning target. So our first learning target is learning target 1.1, matter and energy, and you should be able to explain the difference between matter and energy and understand their role in Earth systems. To kind of see where this fits in with everything else, so here's our first learning target for our unit number 1. There are four learning targets for this unit. So here are the other 3. We will cover these in more detail in future videos. So I'll just leave it at that for right now, but this is the first of 4 learning targets. On the front page of your packet, so this is what the front page of your packet looks like. Here's the first learning target, and these are 5 questions that you should be able to answer or explain if you truly understand this first learning target. So we're going to go through each of these 5 questions today, and we'll do that for every learning target, but let's start with question 1. Can you define matter and energy? The next question is, can you describe the difference between an element, a compound, and a mixture? Question 3, can you explain how matter and energy are conserved? Question 4, can you describe the difference between an open, a closed, and an isolated system for matter and energy? And question 5 is, can you describe why Earth is a closed system for matter and energy? So those are the 5 questions that we're going to answer for this learning target. So starting with matter, matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. If it's made of something from the periodic table of elements, then it has to be matter. It has to be made of atoms. These are some examples over here. Really, matter is not a new concept for high school students, so it should not be too difficult or something new for you. It's anything that's made of atoms. Energy, the definition of energy is the ability to do work. I like to describe it as the ability to do something. Work is not just like the normal word work that we would use, like we're going to work today. This is the scientific definition of work, which is force times the distance. So if you can perform an action, if you can move something, heat something up, then that requires energy. And there's lots of different forms of energy. There's kinetic and potential energy. Kinetic energy is moving energy. So anything that's moving, and that would include something that's hot because those particles are moving from their heat that they have. Electrical energy, mechanical energy, that's moving energy. Potential energy is stored energy, so energy that will be used later. Chemical energy is one that we'll be talking about a lot, specifically in the bonds of chemicals. There's stored energy that can be released. So anytime you have a chemical reaction, you're either going to have energy released from those bonds or energy stored back into those bonds. So there are quite a few different forms. For this class, I'm not going to ask that you know every single type of energy, but you should kind of understand, there's energy coming from the sun, that energy comes to planet Earth, and then it can be changed form in different ways once it gets to planet Earth. The next word is part of a set of words, element, a compound, and a mixture. An element is any substance that cannot be broken down into a simpler substance. So basically anything on the periodic table. So carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, those are all elements. So if you took a carbon atom and sliced it in half, you would no longer have carbon. You would have protons and neutrons. So an element is something that when if you take a chunk of carbon and you keep breaking it into smaller and smaller pieces, you still have carbon until you get down to 1 atom of carbon. This particular chart is kind of cool. This kind of shows where different elements come from, and all elements or actually most elements, come from stars. And that'll be something that we'll cover in our next unit when we do astronomy. A compound is anything that's made of two or more elements chemically bonded together. And we did a lab where we took different spheres and put them together, and we use sticks to represent chemical bonds. So if we have sticks or bonds, then that means that they are a compound. So water is a compound. There's two hydrogens and an oxygen, and they're chemically connected together with bonds. So that makes it a compound. Carbon dioxide is another compound. We've got one carbon and two oxygens, and they're all connected together with sticks, which makes them a compound. A mixture is made of two or more elements, or technically compounds, that are not chemically bonded together. So there's two pictures here. We've got compounds within the mixture, but all of these things are not connected together, which means then it's a mixture of stuff. So this looks like this is probably water right here. This might be carbon dioxide, but it doesn't really matter what they are. We've got three different types of things. We've got this molecule, or this compound I should say, and this compound, and this is a single atom of something, and all of these things are not connected together, which means it's a mixture. So what's the difference between an element, a compound, and a mixture? So we can see an element is one thing from the periodic table. So this is hydrogen atoms form a molecule together, but it's not a compound because they're the same thing. So this would be an element because it's all the same stuff. So over here this is depicting the same idea. It's all the same stuff. So even if we have two hydrogens bonded together, if it's the same thing, it's still just one thing. It's an element. A compound is when we have different things bonded together. So this middle picture over here is showing two different things bonded together. So hydrochloric acid would be an example of a compound. We've got two different things bonded together here. Mixture is lots of different things together, but they're not all chemically bonded together. So we've got this thing and this thing, which are two compounds, but those two compounds are not bonded together. So this is a big mixture. So salt water is a big mixture. We've got water, and we've got the different elements that make up salt, sodium and chloride. So this is a big mixture of stuff. Conservation of matter. This is something that we'll be hitting on in a later learning target in a little more detail. But the definition is matter cannot be created or destroyed, only changes form. So when we breathe, we go through the process of respiration. And we take glucose and oxygen and we rearrange it to make carbon dioxide and water. So if you were to count up all the carbons, all the oxygens, and all the hydrogens, you would have the exact same number on this side as you do on this side. So the conservation of matter is just showing that matter is just rearranged into different forms. There's no place in here do we have new matter coming in or matter leaving. We're just rearranging matter. And where that's going to come up is when we talk about our cycles. So water cycle and the carbon cycle, water just goes around and around and around. There's no place where we have like an arrow coming in that's adding new water, or water disappears and doesn't come back. It's the same water going around. So this is matter being conserved. It's just going from one different place to another, but it's the same water or same matter. The law of conservation of energy is, again, something that we're going to go into more detail in a later learning target. But the definition is energy can't be created or destroyed. It only changes form. So this is really similar to the law of conservation of matter. We take one form of energy, like kinetic energy, and it turns into potential energy. And then potential energy can turn back into kinetic energy when you go back downhill. So it's the same amount of energy. It's just changing form from one to another. This picture right here, we're going to watch a video, I think for our fourth learning target, showing the conservation of energy. It's kind of a cool video. But basically the idea is energy isn't gained from nowhere, and it doesn't disappear to into thin air. One form of energy is changed to another form of energy. And kind of the big thing that we're going to hit on is something like the carbon cycle. We get our energy from eating plants, and plants got their energy from photosynthesis, and they got their energy from the sun, and then our energy, when it leaves our body, goes into our surroundings. So energy is just going around and around our system, and it originally started from the sun, but that energy, once it gets to Earth, is recycled. So it's the law of conservation of energy, just recycled energy. Systems. So we're going to talk about different types of systems, but a system is pretty straightforward. It's a group of things working together. So your cell phone that you have is a system of a lot of different things working together. There's a lot of different parts. There's memory, there's a processor, there's a battery, and then within the system of your phone, there's lots of different apps that do a lot of different things. So your cell phone is a complex system of things that work together. The Earth is a system. There's lots of different parts of the Earth that work together. We're going to learn about like the hydrosphere and the geosphere and the atmosphere, and how those things work together to form one big system that is the Earth. And then other examples would be like a car. That's a system of different parts. You got the engine, the transmission, the wheels. The human body is a system. There's the digestive system, nervous system. All those things work together to form one thing. So there's 3 different types of systems that we're going to learn about: open, closed, and isolated systems. An open system is when both energy and matter are exchanged with the surroundings. So a car is a perfect example of an open system. We have to put matter in, and matter can come out. So humans can go in and out of the car. We also put in gasoline, and that actually acts as energy as well. So the gasoline is energy that goes in, and then it comes back out in the form of kinetic energy as the car moving, or heat from the engine. So a car is a good example of an open system. A closed system, your phone hopefully is a closed system. If you drop it in a lake or something, you don't want water to get in, so hopefully your phone is a closed system, or matter doesn't get in and stuff from inside your phone doesn't come out. I'm sure I know there's some exceptions where there's SIM cards and different memory cards that can go in and out of a phone, but basically the idea is that a phone, matter doesn't go in and out of your phone, but it does need energy. You have to plug it in at night. Does have a battery that needs to be recharged. So energy goes in and out, but matter doesn't. So that defines it as a closed system. Earth is very much or very close to being a closed system, and we'll talk about this in just a second. So I'll leave that as Earth is a closed system, and then the isolated system. There's really no good example of an isolated system. They really don't exist. It's just kind of a theoretical thing. When you get to chemistry, it's a lot easier to talk about things as being an isolated system, so you don't have to talk about how much energy is leaving or coming in. So we're only going to really talk about open and closed systems, and specifically a closed system when we talk about the Earth. So why is Earth a closed system? So we get energy from the sun, and energy from the sun can leave Earth in the form of heat. I put a little asterisk because technically Earth is not a perfectly closed system. Things do leave the Earth. Spaceships, we sent stuff into outer space, and stuff from outer space comes to Earth occasionally, in the form of a meteor or asteroid. But for the purposes of this class, we're going to talk about Earth as being a closed system. The point is, when we talk about like the carbon cycle, and we don't get a significant amount of carbon from outer space, and carbon from Earth doesn't go back into outer space. The stuff that's on Earth just kind of cycles around Earth, which is why we call it a closed system. And that's it. So we are done with learning target 1.1.